and welcome to Shutter Sports Refresh, the show that brings you all the most important news in sports from the past week. I'm your host, Lucky Roberts, and let's get right into it. It's officially March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. The men's and women's tournaments start up this weekend, and of today, the men's tournament is down to the Sweet 16, and the women's will be finishing up their second round later tonight. Of course, we can't recap every game between the 64 teams on both sides, but here's a breakdown of the best games so far. In the first round on the men's side, the biggest story was the 12-seed McNeese State upsetting 5-seed Clemson. McNeese State's overwhelming team defense got to Clemson and led them to a 31-13 lead at halftime. Clemson fought back hard in the second half though and brought the game within 2 before finally losing 69-67. The student manager for McNeese State has been getting lots of NIL deals. His name is Amir Khan, and he went viral for singing along with the players to hip-hop songs. And he has the highest and the first ever NIL deal for a student manager. Unfortunately, McNeese State went on to lose in the second round to Purdue. The second round of the men's basketball bracket was close. Closest was definitely the 4-seeded Maryland against the 12-seeded Colorado State, though. Maryland is known for their Crab Five starters who all evenly score to make Maryland's offense so elite. At the end of the game with Colorado State down 2, Jalen Lake hit a deep 3 to put his team up 1, but Maryland got right back though, as NBA draft prospect Derek Queen nailed a buzzer-beating fadeaway to win the game. Maryland took it 71-72. It was about time for Maryland to win the game at the buzzer though, as they lost their last 4 games to game winners in just the past few weeks. The women's first round was mostly full of some dominant performances from the higher seeded teams. It had some crazy final scores, such as South Carolina beating Tennessee Tech 108-48. Notre Dame beating SF Austin 106-54, and the almighty UConn beating Arkansas State 103-34. What we've seen in the second round so far has been exciting though, most notably with the game between Kansas State and Kentucky. This one was back and forth through 4 quarters and culminated with a fadeaway from Kansas State's Serena Sundell to tie the game at 69. It ended up going to overtime, where the back and forth would continue. With just under a minute left to go in overtime, Mira Poindexter nailed a corner 3 to give Kansas State the lead after a floater attempt at the buzzer was just missed by Kentucky. Kansas State would take the win in a crazy game, 80-79. What a matchup. The rest of the second round for the women's side will finish up tonight, and the Sweet 16 goes down this Friday and Saturday. The men's Sweet 16 is on Thursday and Friday. After the Sweet 16 is the Elite 8. We'll catch back up with you next week. A lot will have changed. Make sure you come back to the refresh next Monday to see what happened. Enough basketball talk, now let's go into some F1. The Chinese Grand Prix went down yesterday morning, second Grand Prix of the F1 season. The winner was McLaren's Oscar Piastri, finishing 9 seconds faster than second place Lando Norris, who's also with McLaren. In third was George Russell of Mercedes. Them both being from McLaren means that they had the first and second drivers, which increases their lead atop the standings. They currently lead the constructor standings by a large amount with 78 points so far. Norris is the first place in the driver standings after finishing second in this Grand Prix and first in the Australian Grand Prix last week. The next race is until April 6th in Japan, so stay tuned for the refresh to get more F1 updates. The MLB season hasn't quite kicked off yet, but will be very momentarily, as we mentioned last week. The Los Angeles Dodgers and Chicago Cubs played a 2-game series to start their regular seasons off. It was held so early because it was MLB's Tokyo series, helping entertain Japanese viewers. The series averaged 24 million viewers, making the most watched MLB event in Japan ever. It's safe to say it was a success. The regular season for the rest of the MLB kicks off on Thursday. Stay tuned for next week with the recap of the opening games. For our last piece of news today, let's talk about the 2 hottest teams in the NHL. The first team to talk about are the St. Louis Blues, who have been on fire since the NHL took a break for the Four Nations face-off. They're on a 6-game win streak, 12-2-2 in their last 16 games, and their best player is Jordan Kyrou, who's scored a point on every one of the Blues games on this winning streak. They sit just 5th in the tight Central Division right now, but they keep an eye on the hot Blues making a wildcard statement. The other hot team in the NHL are the Los Angeles Kings, who have gone 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. They're led by goalie Darcy Kemper, who is the 3rd goalie in the NHL in save percentage right now. The team is on fire and sits 2nd in the Pacific Division. The team ahead of them, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, have stood atop them in the division all season, so it'll be cool to see them get dethroned as we head towards the playoffs. And that's it for this week's episode of Shutter Sports Refresh. I've been your host, Lucky Roberts, and I hope you'll learn something today. Check me, Shutter Sports Media, and the writer for this episode, Finn Noel, on Instagram right here. Thanks for watching.